Hi, this is Zoe Routh, and this is episode 205 of the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. We're talking leadership, we're talking books, we're talking about power, we're talking about leadership books on power, and how to solve the future of masculinity, as well as the future of society. So, just a few simple topics. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we share all things people stuff in leadership. Learn from leaders who have done the hard yards and learned from experience. Hear from expert authors about the latest insights from culture to strategy and messy people dynamics. Get tips and insights from multiple award-winning author and leadership expert herself, Zoe Routh. Now, on with the show.
A couple of things to start off with. I'm not in my usual podcasting bunker, so the sound is not as clear and juicy as it usually has been. I'm actually in Melbourne. I'm in Melbourne this week recording this. I came down to Melbourne with Rob, my husband, who had a case on here, and I've been working remotely from our little apartment, which overlooks construction areas in downtown Melbourne, and it's been raining buckets, as it has everywhere in Australia. So wherever you are in Australia, please stay safe and dry if you can. So that's the first up thing. The second up thing is that the podcast giveaway continues. We're into our last week, so you still have a chance to get into the running for one of the 5 grand prizes. Everybody who submits a review will get one of our exclusive people stuff journals, which are just lovely. I love popping those in the post and sending them out to reviewers. So you can still get a journal and you can still be in the running for the grand prize. The podcast giveaway ends at the end of March. So if you've missed the deadline, well, keep listening, keep rating and reviewing the podcast anyway, because you know what? It's nice. It's nice to review something that you're enjoying and getting benefit from. I wanted to do a big shout out to the reviews that we've had lately. Here are a few of them. These ones are from iTunes. This one is Storytelling for Leaders by Frank Lopalato. Frank, good to have you give us a review. Thank you so much. He says, I've listened to episode 202, Storytelling for Leadership Effectiveness with Gabrielle Dolan. Great insights. I really liked what excuses are you making for not getting things done now, and the need to heal before you share. Yep, that was a great episode. Do make sure you go back and listen to that. Ral is awesome. Her book is amazing. Love it. Here's one from JP in Oz, Amplified Learning. I thoroughly enjoy my weekly podcast from Zoe. Good on you, JP. I'm learning so much and have downloaded and borrowed quite a few books written by Zoe's guests. It's so relevant to where I am working now and how I can boost my change capability and support our leaders and people. You go. Go, 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 JP. This is a brilliant podcast for any leader wanting to be their best. Such a diversity of topics, presenters, and mind-warping challenges. I love it. Super recommend it. I've just started out leading a new team, perfect, clean slate. I've decided that I will listen to and implement something from each one of these podcasts each week, starting with my personal brand. Thanks, Zoe. You're welcome, Donna. Thank you for the review. That's awesome. This one is from #GMD2021. Great questions. Love Zoe's podcast. She has great questions that draw out brilliant insights from her guests. You are so welcome. That's fantastic. Now, we do have another review from our SoundCloud platform from Lee Ma. Lee Ma says, thanks for the fresh approach. After years of Ken Blanchard and the Table Group, you explain contemporary methods that can be implemented in this VUCA environment we now work in. Training, aspiring, and emerging leaders, I will definitely point them in your direction. Thank you so much, Lee Ma. I really appreciate the review. That's fantastic. Okay, now that we are basking in the joy and glow of such positive reviews, let's keep giving you some great content. And what I wanted to do today was talk about some of the research that I'm doing for my upcoming 2 books. One is a novel, which I am slowly plugging away at. It's an epic project. And the other one will be a nonfiction book on power. So I'm well into the research side of things. So research consists of reading really cool stuff. And the first set of books are actually audiobooks. that I've been introduced to from Audible. Thank you, Audible. These are the End of Days series by John Birmingham. Now, John Birmingham is a very prolific writer. This is my first introduction to him, and I have fallen in love. It took 3 of the audiobooks to get there, but here I am. I love them. So this was the 0 Day Code, Fail State, and American Kill Switch, which have been recently released as Audible originals on Audible audiobooks. John Birmingham is an Australian writer, but he sets these series in a post-apocalyptic, that is totally not how you pronounce it, post-apocalypse kind of scenario in the near future in the United States, though he does have little scenes from around the world. Essentially, the storyline is China has instigated a massive global cyber attack on the internet and has brought down communication systems and infrastructure around the world. And this has plunged the entire planet into chaos. In retaliation, the United States launches a virus which kills everybody of Asian descent. So, lovely, lovely picture of the future. And the 3 books follow the stories and challenges of a different set of groups of people and what they were doing the day that the switch got flicked, and how they respond to it, how they come together or don't, how they learn how to wield power well in some cases and badly in others, and how communities can come together in crisis or don't. So it's gritty writing. The language is amazing. His characterization is awesome. So from a strictly entertainment value, it's pretty good. The leadership and power segment is quite interesting too. And it comes in finally the leadership message comes directly in the 3rd audiobook about what it means to actually have power. And the author, through Demo, says, power is not taken, power is granted. And if you lean on power because of fear, then you're actually going to fail. It's not what true power is. True power is loyalty, people who want and love their leaders and want to show up and make a difference that way. So there you go. Spoiled it maybe. That's the leadership message that is finally spelt out in the last section. Along the way, though, it's really quite interesting to explore the ideas that Birmingham puts forward in terms of what might happen, how would people respond, and what resources do we have, personal and otherwise, to contend with challenges, and what can we learn and lean on in terms of leadership frameworks that bring these stories to life. All right, so that's the first plus. Easy to listen to, very engaging. Love the accents narrated by Rupert Degas? Is that the right word? Right name? Rupert. Anyway, he's a legend. Love the narration. It was very easy listening, very entertaining. So the next book is The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, Defining the Path to Inclusion and Innovation by Timothy Clark. This is a very simple, easy to read, actionable book. It's what I call a medium digestible book. And what I like about this is that it's a staged approach to safety in groups. And the primary one, of course, is I've forgotten what my notes are saying. Just hang on a second. Okay, here we go. The first set of safety protocols are about inclusion safety, so how we create a sense of belonging in our teams. It's one of the primary drivers that we have as humans is to belong safely in a group. So as a leader, we need to do that. The author then moves on to talk about learner safety, how we can feel safe to learn and grow our skills. Contributor safety, so how we can share our insights and help develop the whole of the organization. And challenger safety at the top end of the scale, which is when we throw down the gauntlet and challenge the status quo. So each of these grows from the initial stage earlier. And I like this as a book because it gives you a staged and stepped approach to our leadership responsibilities when it comes to developing others and creating a place where they can grow and flourish and contribute. The other part of the books that I like is the fact that it has really good, powerful, reflective questions about how do you respond to people's status? How do you actually deal with difference? So it puts up the mirror pretty strongly. So as leaders, we can do that self-interrogation as we go along. And it's got great chapter summaries. So every great leadership book that is practical and actionable needs to have that, in my opinion. So this book delivers. Thank you, Timothy Clark, for your lovely gem, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. And that takes us to the next really challenging book. It's long, it's complex, and it is also rewarding. And this is The Nordic Ideology by Hansi Freinacht. It's the second book. And the subline is A Meta-Modern Guide to Politics, Book 2. So a meta-modern guide to politics, if that doesn't scare you off, dive in, because it's well worth it. Hansi has a developmental approach to understanding human development and social development, and therefore political development. And he does a wonderful job of outlining everything that we need to understand and comprehend about what we're moving from and towards. One of the key takeaways is understanding this idea of relative utopia. So if ever we advocate for a new society, which he does, he advocates for a meta-modern society, we need to have an understanding that it's not the ideal. There will still be problems when we evolve to the meta-modern society. Now, why does he advocate moving to a meta-modern society? Because he suggests that it is the kind of society that is best equipped to deal with modern challenges. So challenges that evolve from modern and postmodern societies. Namely, the fact that we have a greater division of inequality in the world. We have all these ecological climate change catastrophes looming at our feet. And this increasing sense of alienation and malaise. It's a real modern ill. And if you've read anything or seen anything in the news about mental health, this is the flag of one of the illnesses we have created by all the brilliance of what has emerged from the modern and postmodern societies. So all our technologies have liberated us mostly from basic survival situations to being able to pursue our careers and our social development, which leads us to the questions of what is this all about? How do I fit, etc. So a meta-modern society helps us deal with some of the challenges of the previous societies. So meta-modern society advocates for increased emotional intelligence. So being able to understand ourselves, our drivers, our shadows is really crucial to develop capabilities to deal with these complexities. Being able to take perspective is another leadership skill that we absolutely must develop and hone. And thank goodness, because that's what People Stuff, my 4th book, is all about, is about developing perspective. So if you need some help with that, there's my sales pitch for the book. Go get People Stuff and learn how to develop perspective on self, other, and complexity. So meta-modern society is about how we can create individuals and politics and organizations and systems that can contend with the difficulties that we are facing with right now. Yeah, it's a really long book. I read it on my iPad, on my Kindle, and extracted 34 pages of notes from this book. As a benchmark, when I highlight a book, I usually get maybe 4 to 6 pages of notes. So 34 pages is a lot, but it's well worth it. Now, let me just see if I can find an extract for you, because I thought that there's a really powerful part in here that I wanted to share with you. Let me just get it up. All right, so this is dealing with what the contemporary challenges are. So here we go. What happens in a society where you already have food, shelter, and abundance? People begin to worry that they might be squandering their lives, that they may not be making the best of it, that something is still lacking, that life has become boring and too predictable. The second New Heights issue has to do with struggle and heroism. So that was one of the first New Heights issues. So New Heights meaning the new society in which we find ourselves has problems. So the second New Heights issue, he says, has to do with struggle and heroism. How can we be something else, something more than just an average Jane or Joe consumer? Now that we have relative safety and autonomy, how can we make it worthwhile? Once we have achieved a comfortable villa life, there is still, lingering in our hearts, a visceral longing for greatness within us. How can we transcend ourselves? How can we serve something greater so that our lives become imbued with crisp, clear moments of intense aliveness? Oh, it's just beautiful language. The third higher issue pertains to gender equality and freedom of identity. Can we be sexually emancipated, not only in the sense that we can be women with equal rights as men, but that we can be truly sexually and emotionally fulfilled? Can we experience erotic fulfillment and intimacy both at once? Can we be gay, transgender, or otherwise experiment with and create our sexual and gender identities? Women's liberation and the other gender sexuality issues have come within our grasp in modern societies, but they are not conclusively solved by it. The fourth and last higher issue is animal rights. Of course, a big part of the problem with the abuse of animals has to do with modern phenomena such as industrial farming. Animal suffering is exacerbated by modernity, even with the increased legislations for animal welfare. Residual problems, i.e. leftovers from before modernity, new emergent properties problems caused by modernity, beauties lost, qualities from earlier societies lost under modernity, new heights reached, problems that simply weren't viable to try to solve before, but now have come within our reach. Oh, that was hard, that last paragraph. A society can be described as meta-modern if, and only if, all of the problems of modernity have been more or less resolved, meaning that they have been reduced by at least a power of 10. In other words, meta-modern society is defined as one in which the problems that emerged in modernity, lack of sustainability, excess inequality, alienation, and stress, have been resolved. So that's what we're going for. Effing utopia. Effing relative utopia, that is. That was censored by me. Okay, here we go. So there you go. That's what we're after. Relative utopia, solving those particular issues. So how do we go about doing that? So I wanted to add a few of my reflections on how we go about doing that from my International Women's Day events that I've been speaking at lately, and some of the issues that we've been reflecting on collectively and individually. From my point of view, and it sort of links into some of the things that we've picked up from John Birmingham, Timothy Clark, and Hansi Freinacht, we need better emotional intelligence, particularly our men in our society. We have got to crack this, especially in Australian society, crack this challenge we have of assuming or encouraging men to shut down their emotions. And we only have to look at the suicide rates for men around the country to know that this is really a massive problem, especially in more traditional male roles like the armed forces, like in construction. These particular professions have especially high rates of suicide, which is not acceptable. How do we then contend with that? Well, what we need to do is help our men develop better emotional intelligence, and women, and all humans, essentially. So that is our number one priority. That self-awareness, understanding self, being able to navigate and manage emotions is pretty critical. Hence, ushering in mindfulness, meditation, breathing exercise, yoga, that kind of activity. So if you haven't done that before, put that on your to-do list, to learn list. Okay, I think what we need to do is have more of an integration of personal concerns with professional. And I have plenty of mental health expert colleagues who are advocating just that. And last year, 2020, really highlighted the need for leaders to be across the mental health of their people because it affects them at work, so there's a primary bottom line around it. But that's the nature of our work these days anyway. We are so integrated with our technology and our resourcing and our access. We now have a blending of work life from a logistics point of view as well as a thinking and development point of view. So we need to be more across mental health first aid, mental health well-being, and robustness and resilience in our workplaces. So that is definitely on your task list as a leader, to be across and upfront and transparent and visible with. Lastly, this is a complex issue, but I think if we are to make room for women, we need to reframe how we define masculinity. That's a pretty important piece, because a lot of the messages on International Women's Day are about make room for women, treat us equally, etc. And the subtext of that is men lose out. From a power dynamic, that's pretty challenging. How do we get people to give up power? Not many of us want to give up power. So what we actually don't want is a giving up of anything. We need to co-create something new. What does a new society look like when we have equal contribution from both men and women? And this is where I turn to another book, which is The King, Warrior, Magician, and Lover, The Archetypes of the Mature Masculine by Roger Moore and Douglas Gillette. So I went back to this book and had a look at what they suggest. And I think there is room for the mature archetypes of these ones for men. The mature archetype for king, warrior, magician, and lover. So it's not to deny masculinity or to even necessarily redefine it, but to help it to be mature and healthy. And I think I would say the same for any female archetypes. And that as men and women, we need to learn how to integrate each of these aspects of these archetypes in our worlds so that we can be more effective as leaders and as humans. So we need to make room for women by redefining what we're doing and to bringing the healthy versions of our archetypes to life. And lastly, my last point about that is that we need to redesign some of our systems. Parenting is a difficult challenge for contemporary parents. The old modern way of doing parenting, where it was traditional roles, women stay at home with the kids, no longer works for us as a society. Some women definitely want to stay at home with their kids, many don't. And in any case, if you do decide to stay at home with the kids, as a woman, you are often disadvantaged because you fall behind your colleagues at work who are still working. You lose out on the experience of the workplace, and your experience at home is not necessarily recognized as transferable back when you come back into the workplace. So we need to redesign how we do parenting as a communal activity. And universal childcare, I think, is absolutely one way to do that. I would love to see more workplaces integrate childcare into what they provide for their staff. That way you can have co-parenting easily accessible, and little people become part of the community in a way that they used to be in a different way. So that is my proposal for what we can do around parenting. It's maybe sounding simplistic and naive, but definitely to challenge the question about what we're doing. I think to lead with questions is the important piece here. Is what do we want to create as both men and women in our workplaces? What do we want to create for parenting? What do we want to create for healthy, integrated humans at work and at home? So yeah, just a few big questions. Like I said, this was a big episode, big questions to ponder, but what else are you doing? Yeah, okay. So thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you still have some reviews to give for our podcast to be in the running for the grand prize, which, as a reminder, includes a mug, a People Stuff mug, a People Stuff journal, another one, and a copy of People Stuff, my book. All right, my multiple award-winning book, I should say. It won Book of the Year in 2020, and it's a good read with fun drawings and great stories. All right, that's it from me this week. I hope you have a good one. In the meantime, live well and lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast with leadership expert Zoe Routh. For more about People Stuff and to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.